I guess in the world right now, I feel like this is a generalization, but religion is seen as kind of a bad thing, something that starts wars, starts conflicts all over. And I guess I hope that people can see that there is goodness in the faith communities that exist here. It's up to us to kind of help them live that out. I remember Dr. Mountain kind of saying this first thing, that Milwaukee's a city of churches. There are just a number of different, I guess I should say, meeting places, congregations for all different faiths throughout the city. As a Jesuit university, the Halo Project can teach us how other faiths come to the truths that we accept as well. I really think this project exemplifies who we are as a Jesuit school. I don't know of any other just private or public university who would just have this drive to just go directly into the community. I think it speaks a lot to Marquette's commitment to Milwaukee, and because we are such a powerful force in this city, and we can definitely channel that in a really productive way. So I think this is a good start.
Interestingly enough, the Halo Project got its name. A graduate student of mine actually submitted a research project probably 4 years ago now, looking at the relationship between faith communities and where they were centered in the city of Milwaukee and crime. And the name Halo Project is based on whether or not, looking from a research perspective, whether or not there is a halo around a faith community, in the sense of, is there less or more crime around different types of faith communities? And so that's kind of how the Halo Project started.
And I teach a course on Christian discipleship, particularly for the students that live in the Dorothy Day Social Justice Living Learning Community. And one of our hopes in that class is that they learn something about social justice and what's happening in the city of Milwaukee. And that's part of their living learning experience. But in the theology class, it's looking at Christian discipleship. And it seemed to me that Christian discipleship is different now in this religiously pluralistic world. And it was a great opportunity for the students not just to study theology and the Bible in class, but to see how different faith communities, Christian but also non-Christian, are addressing the social justice needs of Milwaukee.
One of the key things, aside from the Christian discipleship, was we taught them about some economics, about the difference between something called bridging and bonding social capital, and whether a church or a synagogue or a mosque involved in activities for their faith community only, which would be bonding, where they kind of held tight to their community members, or whether they bridged, whether they reached out into the community, independent of whether you were a part of their faith community or not, because it has an impact on their relationship with the larger community around them, their neighborhood.
Noreen and I sent a letter out to faith communities all around the city of Milwaukee and invited them to participate in this and gave them a postcard that they could return to us. So we used those positive replies, and they came in from what, about 88 places?
Yes.
And I mean, the craziness about this is we virtually have enough students to be at all those places. And the students, I think these are 19-year-olds. These are sophomores. And they were really stretched by this experience of having to, even though we have a postcard saying, yes, I want to participate, well, they had to make the initial call, they had to set up the appointments, they had to walk into a faith experience that they may never have had before. I mean, for an evangelical Christian student to walk into a Jewish temple, think about that. Or for a Catholic to walk into a mosque. think about that?
Essentially, in terms of how it fits with our classes, it would be the service learning component of our 2400 Christian Discipleship course.
But also from more of Dr. Leppard's perspective, it is also kind of an economic thing too, because just looking about like studying the economics of the city and social demographics, like what churches fit into that, and kind of like where Milwaukee is going as far as, you know, reducing poverty rates and, you know, getting business up to, you know, where we want it to be. So I think it definitely is more than just a theology project. It definitely is more of a business perspective.
I guess for me, it's more of like a reaching out, representing Marquette and letting interfaith communities outside of Marquette know that we care and that we want to bridge the gap between our Catholic community, as like I'd like to call it. I think a lot of people in the other communities kind of see Marquette as like a Catholic university, and I think people can kind of get a stereotype of the university thinking that we're closed-minded to just Catholics, and I think that this kind of helps kind of diminish that stereotype.
One of the things I was thinking about just yesterday in talking with students in the class is we have a group going out to Bayview next, and we have a group going all the way up to 92nd and Brown Deer Road. So, you know, the edges of the community as well as the deep center of the community. We're going to have some of that information from all aspects of the city of Milwaukee. As it's unfolded, though, once we really push them out of the nest, to take this responsibility and really develop the skills of relationship that they'll need to have 2.5 years from now, or 2 years from now when they graduate, is really important. And they've learned a lot from those faith communities.
I went to St. Albert. It was a Hispanic Catholic church. It used to be actually Polish when it first started, but now because of the neighborhood and that, it became more Spanish, like masses and stuff like that. And so they have all these different Spanish masses, and then they have one English-speaking mass. But it was really interesting because we went to the English one and nobody was there. There had to be about 20 people in this huge church that, you know, could fit so many people. And then we went next weekend, and we were going to go to this English-speaking mass, but we arrived like maybe 20 minutes before, and the Spanish mass was just getting out. And there were hundreds of people just like flooding out, and we're just like, oh, so most of these people speak Spanish. So we're like, we thought, you know, this church was gonna be this empty church, and it wasn't gonna be this, you know, big thing. But then it ended up being, we realized that most of the members of the church were Spanish speaking. I thought it was beautiful. It was great. When we actually talked to one of the fathers, he gave us so much information about everything they do. Like, from our first impression of being there and noticing that, oh, there's like only 30 people here. Like, what type of church is this? Like, no one's here. And then the next week we go, and he tells us that they have over 8,000 members, and we're like, wow. Like, so it was just a huge shock from just our first impressions to what we actually learned. And it's kind of like, don't judge a book by its cover type thing, because it is an old church, and it is falling apart, and you see cracks and all that. But like I said, I really like that type of architecture, and I really like that wear and tear, because you know that it's rich in history.
I haven't been to locations with the students. I've been on my own to a couple of the places. For example, for Palm Sunday, we went to St. Michael's Parish, which is a wonderful, very unusual parish. It's on 24th and Cherry, and it is Hmong, Laotian, Spanish, African American, and English. And so the Mass is celebrated in all those languages, and kind of a blend. You know, something will be read in Laotian, and you'll see it in your program in English. And the drama for Palm Sunday, they do it in a full costume, and all these people are following Jesus. And you're looking out, and every part of the world is represented in the faces. Asian, African, white, Latino, and it was absolutely moving. So those are the kinds of experiences that I've had with that community. One of the other things that captures me, though, is, how shall I say it, as the continuum between charity and justice, and what is going on in that continuum in this city, and who's providing those services to lift people out of the problems that they're within.
Located on 19th and Wisconsin. Redeemer is an ELCA church that's a more liberal branch of the Lutheran sect. There are probably 5 or so Marquette students that are part of the congregation. It's a fairly mixed congregation between African Americans and Caucasians. A new aspect of this community that I experienced, though, was seeing how the Marquette students that live in the area, as well as the Milwaukee community, interact together with something that they call WAVE. The churches down Wisconsin Avenue, including St. Paul's and Calvary and a few of the other religious congregations, all network with each other and just help each other to grow, since all of them are suffering some financial difficulties and just population growth issues. So that's really cool to see that network going on.
I grew up in Milwaukee, and I have always believed that part of the responsibility of individuals is to give back to your community. So being a part of this community in terms of not necessarily going with the students, but modeling for them the ultimate importance that you walk the talk by being involved. You participate in the lifting up of the quality of neighborhoods or people out of poverty by active participation, not by just saying, oh, we should do something about it and wringing our hands.
You know, we went to a mass first. You know, it's a very nice church, probably like a small to a medium size. It's named Bethel Bethany United Church of Christ.
It's a hybrid of like a Baptist and maybe a Lutheran church.
Something like that, or like Episcopal or something. Yeah. They have around 280 like members or so. We only saw probably around 60 or so at the mass.
Yeah, I thought the church was really interesting. They're very liberal and very progressive, which I found very refreshing. They're very open to homosexuality. As we were there, two gay partners, males, were their son was getting baptized, which I thought was really cool. The church is opening the doors to people who kind of feel ostracized by the church, especially homosexuals, and they are trying to bring in Christian teaching and show that it's not necessarily a bad thing and that the church does not really want to ostracize these people, which I thought was really cool because I don't really see that a lot in Christianity. So yeah, and they're so forward with social justice. They have their own newspaper, I think a drum group, a music program for the young kids, and they started it off and they thought it was only going to be an elementary through middle school program. And then they actually extended it to high school, and one of the parishioners, he has gotten so good at music that he was playing at a concert and Beyonce's manager came up to him and was like, we want you to play with Beyonce because you're awesome. And so that was established through the church, and it like kept being pushed forward because the parishioners felt like they had a strong sense of community, and then they could, make it go forward. And to think that someone from some random church in Milwaukee is playing with Beyonce, that's pretty incredible. So.
And again, this is talking about closure, and it's about saying, what is it are they taking away? And they will take away, they will have stories to tell. It's a delight. I'm hoping that some of them get reflected, obviously, and you will as you listen to their stories.
And then we get together in a big circle. And then the partners, the apostles actually, sent 2 by 2, go and tell the stories of the different faith communities they've gone to. So you don't speak for too long. We even had maybe like 5 minutes to speak to everyone in the group. But it was just very interesting to hear the variety of experiences.
That was probably the coolest part, was hearing everyone else's experiences, because I know some people got further than we did. Some people didn't get as far as we did, as far as like being able to connect with their congregation. And I went to Lake Park Synagogue.
Well, we actually went to a religious service, the Shabbat service on a Saturday morning, one morning, and it was just a very interesting experience because it was all done in Hebrew, so that was interesting. I really couldn't understand anything, but it was still really cool because, you know, you got to see the ritual and the respect the Jewish people had for the Torah. I know at one point they just had a ritual where they just brought out the Torah, and then every male and female literally just like touched it and like had an act of reverence for it.
And we got to sit and chat with a few members of the congregation, and kind of they were able to ask us questions, we were able to ask them questions. It was really kind of like a nice get to know other people. So they were very welcoming of us. They were really excited that we were there kind of experiencing this, and I think it was kind of awesome because there was a lot of like older people that were asking us questions, and so for them to see the younger generation taking an interest and kind of showing that we like have like kind of like an open perspective and want to get to know their faith, I think was really positive, and it was really awesome to get to know them.
Yeah, we met some really cool people. We actually met a convert to Judaism, which is pretty rare, but he was actually been coming to the synagogue for the past 2 years and was looking to fully convert within the next year. But then we also met a Holocaust survivor as well, someone who actually been in the concentration camps, and, you know, immigrated to America after that, and then was now, you know, going to Lake Park Synagogue on a regular basis. So you had the wide range of the convert to the Holocaust survivor, and then everyone in the middle, you had, you know, Rabbi Levine, classically trained rabbi, but then you also just had, you know, just Orthodox Jews just, you know, living their faith. And so you just had a wide variety of people in the community.
I went to the Milwaukee Friends Meeting Place, also known as the Quakers. We just went, we went to one of their services, which was started at 10:15 on a Sunday. We took the bus over. It was a really beautiful day. We got there a little bit early, so we were able to walk around the nature preserve a bit. And then it was time to go in, and, you know, we're both a little nervous. Like, this is, you know, we're just kind of randomly walking in off the street, essentially. But we were, like, immediately greeted, like, so warmly. The man at the door, they always have someone at the door to greet everybody. And he was like, you know, immediately, like, took an interest in us and why we were there. And when we explained it, he was really happy to, you know, help out in any way, and just was really personable. So, and then we stayed for the service, which is, I mean, I'm Catholic, so I'm used to, you know, my Mass, but their service is just an hour of silence. So that was definitely interesting, just so much different from what Trevor and I had experienced, because he's Catholic as well. But it was really beautiful. It's like hard to explain because there's just, you know, you're just wrestling with so many things, I guess, in your mind, but you don't really verbalize it because that's not how they do things. And then toward the end of their service, probably for the last 15 minutes or so, different members of the congregation, and we were seated in a circle just in chairs, would stand up and kind of offer an anecdote or like something that happened to them that they felt like they wanted to share with the community, whether it was good or bad. So that's what we did. And then we stayed for their social hour afterward and just kind of got to know some of the different members of the community. Everyone was so friendly. Like, they would just come right up to us, and because obviously we hadn't been there before, and they noticed that, and so that was pretty much what we did.
And I think, you know, as I'm hearing the students come back and tell their story, there are two things that I'm thinking about in terms of the student response. One is it was like pulling teeth to get them to do their first assignment. When they got their second module assignment, they immediately like, wow, let's go find out where that is. I mean, they were transformed in the experience because they had had some success in the first experience and were ready for the second. So that's an exciting piece. But the other poignant piece is the stories they came back with. You know, hearing a little African-American boy of 15 stand up in front of a small congregation.
And he said something like, well, I'm 15 years old and I really hope I can make it to 25, granted the neighborhood I live in.
And so it was just very, very profoundly moving for the people at the site and as well for us, because it showed that, you know, these churches are having an effect, and that, you know, there is a lot of crime and poverty within these areas, but that the churches are both giving hope, but then also, you know, kind of addressing the real issues there. Because the fact that he was, you know, afraid that he wouldn't live to 25 is, you know, just showing that there's a lot of problems.
Hearing that from my classmates and that they were in that moment, it's really powerful, and I know that just an awesome experience, and that we can, help reach out and then set the ground for future people like us.
The one thing I would say would be to try to experience your own faith community as much as possible, because I know from my parish experience, there are a lot of programs that I really wasn't involved in when I was there that I saw and other faiths had, and so it kind of made me want to get more involved in my own faith. So I would say that try to get involved with your own parish, have your own experiences of these commonalities of social justice, as well as try to experience other religions as well.
We also went to the Islamic Center.
Well, we actually came during the center's food pantry, the food drive, and their health clinic, so that was from 12:30 to 2:30 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right, and we actually got the chance to speak with a man named Will Perry, and he's the executive director of the center. And we did sort of a questionnaire with him, and he gave us a lot of great information about how the majority of the people that come to the center aren't actually Muslims, but they still see this center as, a place, a safe haven, if you will. And no one's turned away, everyone's accepted, even those who are struggling with different substance abuse problems, domestic violence issues. They really take care of those people and anyone who walks through their door.
Well, I took away a great sense that despite differences between different religions, you can still help and create one community between different peoples. And so it's just great to see, like Sarah said, that the community was coming together despite their differences, the Islamic community helping the Christian community. And so I saw that there really isn't that much of a divider, and there's actually we have much more in common than we have in different. And then I think that's a very good takeaway for the Halo Project in general, the fact that there are so many commonalities between the different religions, and that it's just a good thing, and we should strive to more ecumenism and working together.
Well, I would have liked to actually work on a project with UCC Bethel Bethany, or do something more with them. I don't want to be a tourist. I want to know the place a little bit before I walk away from it.
Yeah, in that sense, it felt like we were asking these more surface-based questions, and at times, in this packet that we had to fill out, some of the questions were a bit more deep, I suppose, in the sense of getting to know the community. But I think, with us being, as Dr. Mountain mentioned, we were like the pilot group, we're the first year doing this project. So obviously there were some wrinkles that need to be ironed out.
I know something that Dr. Mountain or Dr. Leppert mentioned was how interesting it'd be if the Dorothy Day community could be a 4-year-long program, like you'd apply into it as a freshman, how that would, be more intensive, maybe not intensive. You'd be better able to, do a lot more, you'd be more immersed, I should say, in whatever you choose to be in. So that would be interesting. It would definitely require, more commitment, but then I think you would pull students who would be able to, fulfill that commitment. That's something worth looking into, I think, just because I know with a year, we had service learning first semester, and a lot of us were pretty sad actually to have to leave that and focus on this now. Not that both aren't great, but it's just hard to balance, I guess.
Well, I think it should continue. I think it needs to continue because we've done our fair share this semester, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done because the communities, we've made some bridges with them, but we still need to connect those bridges even further. And I think, just having people go for an entire year even would just be a very positive thing. So then Marquette can actually have more of an impact in those communities. Because if you can have a person there, not permanently, but on a regular basis, you're going to be able to be much more connected to them. So I think it should continue up until that point at the very least, so we can create these strong connections and then, be sending Marquette students to those different areas.
I do want to reiterate, though, the whole idea of pilot, because we've been saying with them and kind of flexible all along, saying we know this is a first attempt. And what we want to do is figure out what's working well in this experience so that a year from now, when I have another Christian discipleship class, and that won't be part of the Dorothy Day Living Learning community, this will simply be a standalone Christian discipleship class, we can somewhat replicate the experience, but stretch the experience as well. We also know that there are other faculty members who have heard about this from different disciplines who are very interested in perhaps throwing their hats in the ring in terms of having their students also be researchers in this project. So in a sense, we're beginning to see a ripple effect of what this project could be for Marquette on that basis. And also, Dr. Lephart and I wrote a small grant proposal for the Simmons Religious Commitment Fund. Did I do that? Let me do that better. Simmons Religious Commitment Fund, in which we're proposing that we invite the leadership of the communities that we've been in this year to a mini summit kind of conference sometime next year, and begin talking about the interfaith responses to justice issues in the city of Milwaukee.
So, you know, a lot of this, it is such a fertile ground for many aspects. It's not, and it is not just centered theologically. So as much as it is a very important of that theology, it's disciplinary, and it is right, getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
I think in general, not just with the HALO project, the more opportunities Marquette students have to get out of Marquette and, you know, just engage in the community around them, the better. Whether that be through the HALO project or whatever other service projects, but I think it's really important to not see Marquette as just Marquette, but as part of a city and part of something bigger. I mean, Marquette's not in the middle of a cornfield. Like, we're not a state school, and we have a lot to offer, and, you know, we're Jesuit, and that's a big part of who we are, and I think we should continue to engage in that and, you know, really push students to go outside, like push ourselves and, you know, really do more, because we have so much opportunity to. And I really do hope that more students can, you know, work with the HALO projects and beyond that, and just continue to engage in service.
I really think this project exemplifies who we are as a Jesuit school. I don't know of like any other just private or public university who would just, you know, have this drive to just go directly into the community.
You know, it's definitely been like a memorable experience. It's been a good experience overall. Not like, you know, it definitely had its challenges, but you know, I guess, you know, we'll see how the rest of it goes. Hopefully, it does continue next year, because I think it definitely can bring about a positive, hopefully a positive change within the community, or a nationwide change that will, you know, better affect faith communities.
After teaching at Marquette for 35 years, this is probably more of an experience of transformative education that I've been part of. And I shamefacedly say, this is more significant than anything I've done in 35 years.
No, I haven't been here. I've been here in two lifetimes. So this last time is 12, and then I went away and went away and came back. And I would say too, you know, and I think that's why this story is so easy to tell. I mean, and people, you know, it's, you know, they say HALO project, and it's something that other people also have resonated with, which is, you know, so it's not only a personal thing, and it has been transformative. It is something that everyone here at Marquette gets, because we talk about it. And I guess the part that I think is great is we did it. And I would do it again. I would do it again. I would say, as sometimes complicated as the pilot has been, and we have, I mean, we've had to make adjustments as we're midstream, make adjustments, because, you know, it takes more than a week and a half to have a student go and call. I mean, that's one of the things it takes longer, everything, just like every life. You know, plan this much, add on a third more. It's life, and then that becomes part of the next envisionment, is to say, the first day of class, we give you your names and go, rather than saying we're going to start you on the project, you know, 2 weeks in, kind of thing. So there are things that we've learned ourselves, but beyond that, man, this has been, it's something that other people, I hope, will be willing to do. And it's harder because it's not in a box. That's what it is. It's not in a box.
One of the things that strikes me is there are very few students 5 years out of school, or 10 years out of school, or 15 years out of school that will remember a text that they read for a particular course. I predict that these students will never forget this experience.